in which case this will be perfect with you because you're going to be able to look over the shoulder as Tony sets up his own practice. That we talk through some of the challenges from at the moment. Today's going to be really about finding a venue, what things he's thinking about, and we'll go all the way through that. This can be a regular, perhaps maybe a quarterly kind of catch up for us along the way. So, sound fair?
Sounds absolutely fair, and it's so amazing to go from, oh yeah, I want to get back into practice, and then you go, holy crap, there is a list of things that need to happen.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. Now, a different version here today because I've got one of the usual co-hosts, but now the co-host is going to be a guest. So, Tone, as a guest for the first time, welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast.
Oh, thanks, mate. It's a pleasure to be here.
How does it feel being on the other side?
Yeah, good. It's all very interesting. Nah, all good, buddy.
So many of you will have known Tony, depending on when this is released, but Tony is on his way back into practice. And so has decided to part with us at ADIO Media. Many of you send lots of lovely messages.
Did get a lot of love and appreciate it very much. So thank you for the messages.
Funny thing that sometimes we don't tell people how much we miss them until they leave. So
I think we've been pretty good at that.
No, that's right. So anyway, Tony and I were chatting about the process that Tony's going through at the moment is he's going back into practice again. And we thought, what a great process for us to have a regular catch-up. One, because it lets us have a regular catch-up. But two, we're going to call this series the New Practice series. So there'll be some of you that'll be out there listening at the moment that maybe you're still students or maybe you're working with another practice and you're thinking about setting up your own practice. In which case, this will be perfect with you because you're going to be able to look over the shoulder as Tony sets up his own practice. That we talk through some of the challenges from at the moment. Today's going to be really about finding a venue, what things he's thinking about, and we'll go all the way through that. This can be a regular, perhaps maybe a quarterly kind of catch up for us along the way. So, sound fair?
Sounds absolutely fair, and it's so amazing to go from, oh yeah, I want to get back into practice, and then you go, holy crap, there is a list of things that need to happen, and some things seem really easy that, you could go and get business cards designed and all that crap that actually doesn't matter.
Yes.
But it's easy to do, so people go rushing to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and so rather than the actual hard stuff, which, and I do find it hard, which is sitting down and going, like, what do I want?
Yeah.
I've been in practice 20 years. I locumed full-time for 3 to 4 years. So I've been inside of hundreds of practices, and it's almost confusing because you see so many great things, and I've seen things that work. I've seen so many things that don't work, and kind of now just filtering through them all, going, all right, that's all great because what works for you may not work for me, vice versa. And so it's getting crystal clear on what it is that I want to do. What's the overarching principles, etc.
Here's what I'm interested, because the last time you set up a practice was in Geelong.
Correct.
And how long ago was that? Because Flynn was a baby then,
Well,
yes?
Flynn was not born, so that
Right.
was 16 years ago.
Okay, so you set up a practice in Geelong from scratch.
From scratch.
So what are you going to do differently now? We'll call it 15 years later, with 15 years of wisdom. What's different about the vision that you have from your practice from what you set up then? Are there some key things that you're going to do?
I think there's some key things that are different. Back then, I was young, we were so into everything and we were going to save the world. You know what I mean? There was this utopian, idealistic view, which was amazing because it allowed us to do what we did. And now I go, I'm 44 years old. I'm not going to go and save the world. I've been dented and bruised and battered enough times to know that, okay, I want to have an impact on the world and community and that sort of stuff. But there's a different sense of why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because, part of my bigger purpose to, is to get my hands on people. And I have missed that now, looking back over the past few years of not doing it. I want to be giving a positive impact. I also want to be, leaving a legacy for my family and creating, I guess, security in, financially, and setting up this at the beginning when I was in Geelong. It was, I want to do this because that's what everyone else is doing. There was so much borrowed from everyone else. I did it this layout because everyone else did it. I was open plan because everyone else was. I was CBP because everyone else was. I had Omni tables because everyone else was.
Fee structures,
yearly fee. It was all because someone said I should do it that way, not through an insightful view of what's going to work best for me.
Yeah.
And I think this will be really interesting for people to listen to over the course as I go through this, and I hope that people listen to it and go, oh yeah, that's not for me. And I hope that you do if you're listening to this and you think, Tony, you've got it all wrong, I'm going to do it this way. Because that's great. Because now I'm looking at people that are in practice and I go, you know what? That's great for them and it's right, but it's just not right for me.
Remember, we've often talked about, in ADIO Media, we kind of talked about a practice being profitable, predictable, sustainable and enjoyable. And certainly the way that I set my practice up in the early days, we're filming this right now, it very clearly wasn't sustainable. The volume of people we were looking after, the stress that it had on me leading to some kind of, chronic fatigue at that stage and all that kind too. And then it was almost in those stages for me too, was bigger is better. And I look at now and listening to you, it's talking about, okay, I'm not after it. How can I have this thing be mean and lean and enjoyable and profitable, but fun and all those, they tend to be the things.
Easy.
Easy is something I hear you talking about all the time.
And it might be an illusion.
Yeah.
But I really have a sense that I can create this thing that is fun and it's highly profitable because we can keep overheads low, we can dollar averages high, and not that it's about the money, but it is about the money. You're not going into practice to fail. You're not going into practice to not earn a good income. I've got great things to share. So I do want to earn a good income. So I want high profit.
I wonder this, let me jump in for a moment because I'd be interested to see your thought on this. Because if you had asked me 20 years ago, if I had have said, I'm going to see if I can get the numbers right here, but I've said, hey Angus, would you rather see 200 people at a $25 average or 100 people at a $50 average? At that stage there I would have said, let me see the 200 people, man, because I'm going to, whereas now, like I'm happy to admit, I'd rather see the 100 people at a $50 average.
Absolutely. And I mean, because I've done it. I mean, I've seen hundreds, 600-700 patients a week at a dismal dollar average. And hey, it was fun and it was multi-generational. There was more families coming to that practice than I've ever seen. But gee, to get, it's less responsibility. I want to be about connection and intimacy in the right way. Intimacy of relationships that I want to build with people. Now, can you still do that, seeing hundreds and hundreds? Absolutely you can. I just don't want to do that.
Yes.
And I think that's a big point. It's, there's a lot of things that I'll do differently, not because I think they're wrong, just because it's right for me now.
Yeah.
And it is. It's interesting, but yeah, certainly so. High profit, high value, high care, high touch, high tech.
Yes.
Those kind of principles.
It's interesting because a lot of it just is coming back to a model of ease, of long-term sustainability. And I think too, given that we have had 20 years of watching this, and sometimes you and I sit back and have a giggle where we're talking about a practitioner that we know who's opening his practice at the moment, and we had a little bit of a chuckle because we know what he's going through as well. He's full of pea and vinegar, all that kind of stuff too. But there's this, I think the question that I don't know that I even really asked at the beginning stages, which is what do I actually want? What's most important? So how's that? Because I know at the moment we're talking each day that you're looking at lots of different venues. What are you looking for? You want a house? You want how much space you're after? Shops? Because you're looking at lots of different options there.
Mostly looking at shops, commercial premises. Now, a lot of them have been, upstairs, downstairs. I went and looked at one the other day. Yesterday, actually, it was in the basement. Right. So an beautiful old Art Deco building, with a big grand entrance, and then the staircase up and the staircase down. And this one was actually in the basement with light wells coming from the footpath. Really cool. And just a different feel, different vibe. And with today's, we're not putting letterbox drops out and signs up on the street. With marketing as it is, online, social media, etc. There's sure, walk by traffic is great, but certainly not essential.
No.
To have a thriving practice. So, I'm looking at premises that maybe upstairs on the first floor of a commercial building, rent is half.
Yeah.
Not that it's all about that, but it's a factor.
But it's another thing too that, see, I feel that 20 years ago, when we would have said, oh, but rent is half, we would have gone, it doesn't matter, man, because you can see a gazillion people anyway.
Yeah.
And you want that. But there's a realism that says, well, look, maybe I'll just see a gazillion people down in the basement or a gazillion people up the top there too. And this idea nowadays, I mean, who really chooses their practitioner based on I drive past them? Mm-hmm. Now, where we're filming this right now, we're on a really busy road here in Bay Street in Port Melbourne. And I don't know, you've worked here with me. Would we get 5 a year that the primary reason they put on
simply walking by?
Yeah,
not many.
It's not a lot anyway. And they're not the kind of high quality people that we want anyway, because in terms of do they know, like and trust us, well, they know us via walking past numerous times there as well, but they're not like that deep level of referral that we can have from internal referral or that we can orchestrate online.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to the fact that we often talked about is have it as part of your strategy, just not your only strategy.
Yes.
You don't want to be just relying on referrals. You don't want to be just relying on your sign out the front. You don't want to be just having this holistic view of your marketing. I think is super important.
Yeah.
Provide great value. Let people know you're there for sure.
But it could be too, because my Instagram post from yesterday was just about our A-frame that sits out the front there. That every now and then we put a sign on there that says, "Hey, do you know that we can help people with sore shoulders?" And it amazes me that people come and say, "I've got a shoulder problem, can I make an appointment?" That kind of stuff.
Yep.
So even if you didn't have street frontage, but you would pop an A-frame out the front there,
there's some presence.
Yeah.
And I think you need. I'm looking to have presence somewhere. That's for sure, but that doesn't necessarily need to be, street frontage, double windowed shop front.
Yes,
that's for sure. But it's a really interesting because there's such a varied, amount of space. You can get for similar pricing depending on layout. You can get 60 square meters. You can get 110 square meters. I mean, it just varies so much, and then the layout varies between. Partitioned walls that you could easily knock down and make into whatever you wanted versus solid brick walls which can't be moved. Do I want to do open plan? Do I want to do part open? Do I want to do closed room? All these things come into it when looking at a premise and having a vision of it, being able to see it. And I think that's if you're new in practice, sometimes it's hard to have that vision because you haven't seen different styles of practice work. Versus now I've got I don't know that there's a style of practice that I haven't worked in.
So what would your suggestion be there then? Like if somebody was, let's say they are a new grad, perhaps in their final year of studying at the moment, Chinese med practitioner, chiropractor, maybe it's a fitness professional wants to set up their own place, and they haven't seen a bunch of places. Any kind of advice for them?
Go and see a bunch of places. No, it's not rocket science. Yeah. Just knock on some doors and just say, I'd love to spend an hour with you in practice, or just have a look through your practice. I'm setting up, wherever, and I'd love to check it out. Might be even easier to go somewhere that's not in the area that you're going to set up in, so they don't feel, what's going on here. But just go and have a look, and don't just, as a chiropractor, don't just go to chiropractors. As a Chinese med, don't just go to Chinese med. Check out other professions as well, because we can learn a lot from how other people do it in different models. So, I used to have a practice ideas file in my filing cabinet, and I just take a pamphlet from that person, or a fee structure from that person, or a layout from that person, and just keep it in the file. And I drew on that a lot. When I set up last time and even today.
Yeah. And I think a question that I would encourage you to ask the people you're going to see as well is don't just assume because that's the way that they're doing it, that's the way they would continue to do it. So if somebody came into me now and said, look, Angus, if you were setting up again, what would you do differently? And I know for me, and we're trying to play with some layouts at the moment, is that we have a lot of days that the practice is closed, and it's not an ideal layout to have other practitioners in here, but we're looking at that. So if someone were asking me that question, it'd be, I would have it set up more so that I could rent space to other practitioners. Have you thought about that as well? Do you want other practitioners, chiropractors, supportive practitioners? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly the longer term vision is to have other people in the practice. I don't want to be working 7 days a week, obviously. So some layouts in some places have been a lot more, easy. Like, I could easily just rent those 2 rooms out there and then have the chiropractic end to this end. Or down the track, I could partition that off and lease out the rooms. Absolutely, but it's certainly part of the vision to start with. No,
right,
just me.
Just you to begin with, because there are I know some of the places that you've looked at have even had alternate entries and stuff like that that would be a great advantage to, if you want another practitioner, they could come in and out, those kind of things too. Because when you think about it, this was a mistake that I made really early on in practice too. I forgot how much little things add up. And you and I were running through the numbers here that says, you know what, look, I could rent out probably a room out the back of my practice here, really conservatively. Let's call it $100 a shift. So if it's $100 a shift, it's $200 a day. And let's just say that I was able to do that 4 days a week, that would work towards. It's another $800 a year. And then if I could do that for 50 weeks of the year, that's 40 grand.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, $100 a shift, like I'm like, I don't know, that's a lot of pain.
Is it worth it?
That's a lot of pain in the bum. But I'd put up with a lot of pain in the bum for 40 grand a year. Like 40 grand a year is a significant holiday, or whatever you want to do to spend with it. But it was little things like, even in the early days, I remember running through the same things. Like, I didn't really sell a lot of stuff in the practice to begin with.
You remember?
We went through the pillow conversation.
The pillow conversation.
But all of a sudden I planned out the pillows and I go, there's 10 grand of pillows. And then, I'm getting people to buy pillows, I'm getting people to buy some omega-3s and all of a sudden these little bits and pieces there, which patients are buying anyway. Have you thought about that kind of stuff?
Look, no. Yeah. I haven't got to the product side of things yet. My plan is to keep chiropractic, keep it pure. Will it happen? Yeah, maybe. I'm certainly open to it. Particularly if I'm telling people they need to do this and they'll just go up the road and get it. They might as well get it from me. But not at the beginning.
Yeah, there comes a fine line, because you probably tell them to go up the line to buy the bananas too, but that doesn't mean.
They don't have to sell bananas.
What makes sense? Now, here, question without notice.
Yeah.
We bang on about niche all the time. Okay, we talk about, rather than setting up a chiropractic practice that looks after people from the womb to the tomb, we said that nowadays we think the successful practice of the future is going to be one that has a focus, certainly lots of their communication out to the world. Have you started playing with, where you want to go with that?
Yeah, I think there's two key messages that I want to put out to the community. One is posture, one is performance.
Yeah.
And they play beautifully together.
Yeah.
Obviously our posture affects our performance, but, and I really want to look at this concept of the athlete.
Yes.
But whether it be a corporate athlete, a domestic athlete, a recreational athlete, a weekend athlete, we are all athletes because we all need to be performing at our best for whatever the task is. And so that's going to be a kind of a big strategy to my marketing.
Yeah,
I feel really cool about it. It's a bit, I don't know if it's a bit different or not, but it fits to my model. Obviously, I use the Insight scanning, so it fits that model beautifully as well. Posture, energy, efficiencies, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's going to be a really good fit for me.
Yeah, I want to touch on the scanning stuff for a moment there too. Inside Community Influencer last week, we did a training on what the world-class initial consultation looked like, and one of the challenges, certainly, for chiropractors, massage therapists, even fitness experts to an extent, we're very high touch, which is great, because very often if you go to your GP or many specialists, they don't even touch us. There's not that too. But we're very low tech as well. And I think in this 21st century, having some technology along with things too, brings a level of authority as well. Now you a sales rep, Australian distributor for. Tell me a little bit about the substation for people who haven't got, and what role that'll play in your practice, because that's going to be part of your branding as well.
Absolutely. So the Insight, it's as you said, it's high tech. So it's technology that allows us to look at someone's neurology. Part of my challenge in practice, years ago, was that I was very posture focused, but very mechanical, very. I was looking at structure and yet talking about how that related to neurology, but I was never measuring the neurology. And so the Insight allowed that to happen, where I'm actually measuring someone's efficiency. So the three big technologies with the Insight is, one is the EMG, so measuring the efficiency within the postural system. So how efficiently is your body working to do a simple task, which is to sit upright against gravity? And we can measure that.
Yeah.
And we can then track that as someone goes through their care. And another one is a thermal scanner. So we can measure autonomic control at a spinal or segmental level of the spine, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then the third one, HRV, which is actually my favourite, which is the global autonomics of just saying, how is your nervous system coping with life? How much juice have you got in your tank? Are you adapting efficiently or not to what life's throwing at you? And we can, again, you measure and then track someone through their care. So it's that objective neurological testing that allows me to base my care plans on, change my care plans on, know whether someone's actually healing or whether they are just feeling better.
Yeah.
And
that comes a big part too. I'm a huge fan of the insight technology, and I've had it in my practice for a long time also. If you want to check it all out, then follow Tony up. Certainly if you're Australia, New Zealand here as well, Tony can help you out with that also. Practice multiplier number 5 is about building lifetime relationships with people. And so many of us, if we're trying to tell somebody, hey, listen, it's important for you to have an ongoing checkup, regardless of whether you feel great or not. It's nice to have some kind of way to objectively measure how somebody is doing it too. And I think the scanning technology that because we're on a journey with our patients that, I'm getting adjusted for a few weeks and the reason for coming in is in many cases gone. But there are still objective signs that posture's still out of balance. They still got that forward head posture. And if you're taking a series of scans that says, look, it was like this, it's now like this, but we've got to get to here, then it helps people understand the journey that they're on as well. And I think when you start to get into, I'm excited for that concept of posture, performance, and then, we can measure performance of the nerve system through the scanning technology there. And then that idea of, the corporate athlete. Did you say domestic athlete?
Yeah, the domestic.
Yeah,
That was just something I came up with yesterday. Actually,
Yeah.
I was thinking about it yesterday. And I went, how do I incorporate the person who is at home doing all the duties there? It's domestic athlete. So, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, good.
And then I think because you think of athlete, but there's the weekend warrior, that kind of weekend athlete.
Yes.
Or the professional.
Well, because dealing with these athletes never ceases to amaze me. One of my staff who works with me here, who's our 4th year chiropractic student, Ash, her boyfriend plays VFL for Port Melbourne. Okay, so he's one level below the topmost elite footballers that we have here. They have full-time staff there, physiotherapists, all those kind of things, doing a great job looking after him. He was having some ongoing hip problems. And I said to Ash, bring him over home. I'll help you adjust him. You need to start learning how to practice, those kind of stuff like that too. And so he's a guy that's super fit, knows his body. And in essence, he had a subluxated pelvis, so stuck SI joint there too. We adjusted it, and his performance has gone through the roof. They're the best people to look after because there's such great baselines there.
The good knowledge of their own body, haven't
Yes, yeah. And if we can communicate with them, he wasn't in enough pain that he would have. But once you start to talk performance with Shannon, he understands. He's seeing the changes.
I think there's a fine line with the athletes to me as becoming a therapist. I'm not the injury specialist. Again, I've got to be
strapping knees.
No, I'm not strapping knees, and I'm not all that sort of stuff. Which other people do it way better than I could do it.
Yes,
let them do it. But on that performance model,
yes,
that's what I'm after.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
staffing. Are you going to start with a staff member?
No, I'm not.
Right.
No.
Okay. So why not? What are you going to do?
I'm flying solo.
Right. How are you going to manage that?
Well, that is a very, very good question, buddy. Because again, it might be an illusion that I can do it, but I'm on the prowl for systems that I can set up that will allow me not to be bogged down by it.
Yeah. Well, there are things nowadays that make this way more possible now than 15 years ago when you set up down in Geelong. And so
paperless systems.
There you go. Yeah.
So those sort of things where I can be, billing, whether it's, people are prepaying for blocks of care or number of visits or whatever it may be and how it's going to look. I've still got to work that out.
Yes.
But I think there's a way that it can happen so that maybe only every 10th person is actually doing a transaction there and then. A lot of people could do it online. There's so many different payment options.
Yes.
Paperless files, all those things.
Would you think you'll have some online bookings for appointments?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And I haven't worked out whether that'll be just for initial visits or for every visit. But again, I've just got to clarify that as well because there's one thing to have your patients have control over their appointments. There's another thing to hand over control of your appointment book to your patients. Don't know, not quite sure on that one.
Interesting. When I was talking with Billy Chow recently, so we, again, whether he's been on the podcast or released the episode, but he works with the Black Diamond Club, and he was telling me a little bit about what Sean and Lacey do with the specific. And lots of their practices to begin with don't have a CA. And every new patient that calls up, there's a telephone consultation that's done first. Yep. And so you would take a little bit of the history over the phone there too. It does a couple of things. It helps you pre-qualify the patient to find out if they're in the right place to get what they need as well. But it also, because then when they come into the practice and there isn't a CA, you can let them know a little bit about that as well. So it was interesting. That's one of the ways they kind of cope with the traffic, that a lot of it's done. Then you just bring somebody in, listen, let's get some scans, let's do this and that. That initial consultation, the heavy part of the history is already done at a time when you're free and flexible and not worrying about adjustments coming in there too. I mean, that's an interesting concept. I like the idea that some of that can be done. You really build that rapport beforehand and pre-qualified people, because if somebody's after something that you don't offer, a style of chiropractic as well, that
no point wasting anyone's time.
That really makes sense. So we're looking at starting up a practice that is about ease, that's about profitability, predictability. I like this model of posture, performance, and the athlete in all their different kind of variations as well. A practice that's high tech, high touch, and I would imagine that by the time we get back together next time, because you're looking at lots of different venues at the moment.
I would imagine I will be up and running.
Yeah. Any other kind of final thoughts to leave our listeners with? Going through your mind at the moment?
Look, just that it's a really, there's lots going on, and I guess there can be that sense of overwhelm. So, looking at the bigger picture of, I've just got to make sure that I'm, meditating, that I'm getting plenty of sleep, that I'm looking after me during this process, because it can be, I do find myself going a bit adrenal on it all. So I've got to just keep myself in check,
Yes.
And exercising and, doing all the good things that I need to be doing to make sure that I can fulfill this next mission that I'm on.
Yeah. Let me share one last thought with you, because I think you'll like this, and I think our audience will too. I was listening to a podcast yesterday of a guy who was interviewing a woman who has a $25 million life coaching business. She trains life coaches. And she said, he was saying to her, like, how do you do it? And her answer was, feeling. That's the way that she actually said it. Feeling. And she said, what I mean by that is people come to me and they want to know, what headline do I use and what's your tactics and what's your strategies? And she goes, I do it all from feeling. I feel what it's like to have a $25 million business, and then I act that way. And it was really neat into that too. And I think for you at the moment too, and for me, I can't speak for you obviously, but for me at the moment it was a great reminder to go, what does it feel like? Because it's our feelings and emotions that drive our actions. It's the actions that drive our outcome. And here was, and she says her goal is in the next 10 years to get to $100 million. And she's such a passionate believer in this kind of law of attraction, but not just feel it and do nothing. She's a massive action taker too. And she says one of the reasons I want to keep on producing massive results is to show people that this works. And it would appear that just kind of listening to you, just seeing the passion in your face before talking about performance and stuff like that too, stay in that feeling.
Yeah, it's that be, do, have thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's that other side of things there too. So, dude, thanks for sharing with us today.
Pleasure.
That was almost 30 minutes. It's gone past super quickly. So will you come back and join us in a few months' time?
I certainly will. I'd love to.
Wonderful.
And share my ups and downs and ins and outs.
See where it's at there too. Gang, you've been listening to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. If you haven't already, then scoot on over to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Make sure you subscribe. And if you could give us some stars, whatever you think is fair, and a rating there too, that would really help us share the word around the world. And as always, keep saving lives. Thanks for all that you do. Over and out. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.